Welcome to Whispers, everybody, on AM 1600 WKKX. It is 8:10 p.m. and 31 degrees. At least it's not snowing.
Yet.
Was it raining when you guys came in?
A little bit.
A little drizzle.
It was
Which
raining
it's
good
weird
when I
because
came.
yesterday it's like kind of warm and nice, and I had a sweater on.
Yes.
Then today I was like, oh, it's going to be warm again.
No.
No.
Well, day before
tomorrow?
yesterday,
It was
cold.
20.
Yeah.
freezing.
Yes, it was 20.
So I'm not sure
What's the
exactly
high?
what's going to happen.
Give us a
Especially
call,
in December.
304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, call us toll-free, 1-866-514-1600.
Well, I had a quick question before we go to the game. All right, I'm in my car driving back and forth to Moundsville.
Uh-huh.
Now, no one's talked to me about this, and I've talked to Jordan a little bit. You know, I'm a little upset that you guys are assuming this. Okay, why am I going to be reading letters? I mean, you're saying the jolly fat guy is going to be reading letters. Then I'm like, okay, maybe it's, then they're like Old Saint Nick, and I'm like, I'm not reading
I
letters.
didn't even think about this.
And I'm like, you know,
But
I'm
isn't
not
that
th-
your
I'm not that jolly.
yearly job? Don't you have one main job during the year that you take care of, and you can do it all in 24 hours? I thought you could do this.
I can't go down chimneys. I'm not designed in this way. I'm not aerodynamic, and I don't know any reindeers.
Oh, okay.
Reindeer. I'm adding an S onto the end.
English major.
Yeah.
Reindeers is.
Jeez. Reindeers.
S's.
Yes.
All right.
I'm sorry. I had to get that off my
That's
chest.
Tonight we are going just right to our guest. She is an amazing woman, Dr. Lynn Kitai from Phoenix, Arizona. She is actually the, how do I want to say? She saw the Phoenix Lights, documented it, wrote a book. There's a documentary about it, award-winning, and we got her on the line.
You sure do.
Miss Lynn, you there?
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
guys?
That would be Dr. Lynn.
You should come visit Phoenix. It's really beautiful here, nice and warm.
That's mean.
I'll send some sunshine your way.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you.
do that, please.
I just had a friend that was just visiting there, and she came back, and it's snowing and everything, and she was gone a week. And it's like, so how was the weather in Phoenix? It was like 86 every day, and she was.
Well, more like 80, but who's counting?
Yeah, really.
This is a couple
When
weeks
it's 20
ago.
here, who cares?
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's
I do.
been great. It's been great, and that's one of the things that is really indigenous to this area. The skies are usually clear, and people have a great view of the sky, and we get to see things that are unusual from time to time, which we did almost 12 years ago on March 13th, 1997, as well as prior to and after. But that's really one of the most historic mass sightings that has ever happened throughout the state of Arizona for many, many hours, from about 5 p.m. to about 2 a.m. For anyone out there that hasn't heard about it, there were the Hale-Bopp comet was very clear in the northwest sky when thousands of people were outside looking skyward to get a glimpse of the comet, and they also got a glimpse of a 1 to 2 mile wide formation. And some people actually saw a rock-solid formation of lights that seemed to be attached to something. Others actually saw a craft traverse right over their heads about 30 miles an hour, very low altitude. Some people said it was so low they could throw a stone at it.
Oh, wow.
And totally silent. Whatever happened here throughout the state. And again, we estimate at least 10,000 people saw this because it was a beautiful night as well, and many people were outside looking up at the sky. To this day, it is still unexplained.
Now, can you set up, okay, you know, you're sitting at home. What? It was like 8 o'clock at night?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Well, that's when I had my first sighting that night. Actually, my husband, who's also a physician, and I had a very close sighting to our home 2 years prior to the mass sighting.
Oh, wow.
Had no interest or knowledge in this topic at all. I happened to get pictures of it. It was very close to our home. We lived mountainside in Paradise Valley, and it was over a private gated community. There was no way that it was military or anything of that nature, and wondered for 2 years what this advanced technology was doing in our neighborhood. And then 2 years later, The lights came back actually 2 months before the mass sighting. And for anybody out there that's on their computer, if they want to get to our website, thephoenixlights.net, they can take a look at the photo page. One of the main reasons I came forward after 7 years of anonymity was that these things obviously were occurring prior to, during, and after the mass sighting, and I happen to have a unique collection of pictures of these things that I've gone to extreme lengths to have explained to me. But at any rate, it just so happened the second night, 2 months before the mass sighting, this is in January of '97, which is really important data, the same formation was in the same location, and I happened to catch 6 pictures in a row of this object or phenomena, whatever, head-on, turning into a V shape. Was so unnerving because it was so massive and so unusual that the next morning I called around, found air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport. They saw the same thing in the same place at the same time, and it actually was in Class B airspace. They had no idea what it was, did not show up on radar, and in their own words, there were 6 points of light that they could see through high-powered binoculars that seemed to be attached to something. We heard this over and over again during the mass sighting, but this was 2 months before. But they couldn't see what it was attached to. Like either there was a field in between, or we really couldn't see what it was holding on to. But there seemed to be an object there that was moving slowly in tandem. These lights were moving in synchrony behind the mountain. And when I said, "Well, what were they?" there was silence. And finally, the air traffic controller said, "Beats me." And we stayed in contact up into and including the mass sighting night, where I happened to catch a video of a signature video, one of the 5 videos from that night, about 10 o'clock, and they saw that too, in the same location in Class B airspace. So there's no way that it was military there. There's no way that it was flares or anything like that. There was definitely something unusual and still unexplained that happened throughout the state, and many people saw it, and a lot of people are forward this many years later.
I think that's one of the first misperceptions when everybody thinks about this. It was not just in Phoenix; it was throughout the state. It started from the north all the way, like it was, going on parade through the state.
Exactly. Parade is a great word because we're actually revamping our website for the 12th anniversary in March to really indicate, because we've done a 12-year study now, of all the phenomena that were occurring statewide. And actually there are reports in New Mexico earlier that day, and also reports later that night in Nevada of the same object. So there was definitely something really spectacular happening. Whoever did this wanted to be seen.
Now, in your opinion, who do you think did this? I mean, do you believe... Well, first, let me ask you this. Do you believe it was one craft, one giant craft, or do you believe it was several small ones?
We may never know, to tell you the truth. And what it is, I've never said what it is. I just know that it is. And it's time we get this topic out in the open, and we address it, and we accept it, and we study it. I went to extreme lengths, pushed my entire medical profession aside after the mass sighting, when thousands of people saw what I had seen, and I knew nothing about these phenomena or anything about the topic, and had no interest in it. But now thousands of people had seen what I had seen, and I wanted to find a logical explanation, and went to extreme lengths to do so at university level, University of Arizona Optical Sciences Department, Consciousness Study Department, Arizona State University Geology, Anthropology, Astronomy, Mathematics Department, as well as the Brooks Institute of Photography, renowned Brooks Institute of Photography in Santa Barbara. And across the board, no one could give me an explanation. We actually don't have the technology yet to definitively define what these things are, but that doesn't mean they're not real. It took 17 centuries. Just think about this. It took 17 centuries for human beings to realize, with the advent of the microscope, that there are zillions of tiny living organisms all around us, even in our bodies. Some are pathogens, some are beneficial. We've learned to live with it. Well, just because we can't see these tiny living organisms, it doesn't mean they're not real. So we might be just looking on an AM dial for an FM frequency.
Like AM 1600.
Right.
Nice save there. Nice save.
Now, how much resistance, you said all this list of places you went, how much resistance did these places give you, if any, when you asked them, can you help me figure out what this was?
Well, that's a really good question because initially I stayed anonymous, by the way, for 7 years. Doing my own meticulous research. Anyone that came forward initially really got blasted. They were ridiculed. I mean, there was a lot of ridicule, a lot of snickering, even by the media, although there was media right here in Phoenix. Luckily enough, a couple of the reporters had seen it themselves, and they were also looking for answers. And it seems to be a scenario when people experience these unexplained phenomena, you want answers because we don't have any reference for it. In fact, there are many countries out there, and that's what I learned 1 week after the mass sighting, and it sent me on a journey, and I started writing a journal. I ended up with a 750-page journal that I ultimately squeezed the best of what I found into the 220-page book because I'm an educator. I don't know if you know my background, but I've been producing video and workbook curriculums on vital health issues for the community for 30 years, and how could I not do the same for the reality of this vital issue? So anyway, to answer your question, initially I just stayed in the background, let out my pictures. That was good enough for me so people could see what we saw. But I have to tell you that I was so welcomed by the academic community because they knew. I mean, I wasn't saying what it was. I didn't know what it was. I was trying to find out. And when they really looked at the data, it could not be denied or explained. So they were just as fascinated. And by the way, I kept on hearing over and over again, no one ever in history has taken video and 35 millimeter from the same vantage point prior to, during, and after a mass sighting. So what do you do with that? In good conscience, I couldn't stick it in a drawer. So once I had accumulated enough data as well as the fact that I learned a week after the mass sighting that this is happening worldwide, I had no idea. Belgium actually had their sightings in the 90s, very similar. Russia, 1 month before ours, in February 19th, 1997, had an identical mass sighting. And some of their video, they had a couple people take video, is identical to my pictures. And around the world, this is happening at a faster pace. And there's even indigenous people right here in Phoenix, actually. Right, we have two mountain ranges, South Mountain and the Estrella Mountain Range. And by the way, Estrella means star in Spanish, so one wonders how it got its name. But they will tell you there is a basin in between those two mountain ranges called the Gila River Indian Reservation. And they shared with me and others that they've been looking up at these phenomena for centuries. It's part of their culture. They believe that there are spirits and that they come to visit them and give them knowledge, and they feel very comfortable with it. Well, we have no reference for it. To answer your question, the more you look into this, the more you find out that other countries and other cultures are much more open than we are here because they accept it as a reality. So, ultimately it became a choice of whether to get out there and just share the information. People can make up their own minds. It's everyone in their own time.
Now, can you tell me, because you said before you gave up your career, like what was it that pushed you to that point where you said, I know what I do is important, but I have to figure this out?
Right. Like I said, once you have an experience that's extraordinary like that, it changes your worldview forever. And some people can't deal with it. Some people deny it. I, for one, being an educator and being curious, because I know I saw it up close and personal, wanted to find a logical source and meaning for what I have witnessed and photographed. I have yet to find it. The more I looked, the more I found of fascinating data, even going back to the Bible. I mean, these orbs, and I call them an orb, and that's what my husband and I saw up close and personal in 95, 2 years before the mass sighting. We saw 3 orbs. And I call them an orb because the light did not extend outside the edge. The light was self-contained, extremely unusual. The light was like nothing you've ever seen before. They were a uniform amber color throughout. It didn't glare at all, and you noticed immediately that every light out there glared. And there seemed to be an intelligence behind it. And I know that might seem strange, but when you're, like I said, we don't have a reference for it, so it's a little difficult to explain, but you know what you see when you see something like that. And it took a long time for me to feel comfortable coming forward with the information because I didn't know what the reaction was going to be. But luckily enough, people actually look at the data, and that's all I ask, just look at the book. And now we have a documentary that's won over a dozen international film festival awards, which is really unheard of, not only for a documentary, but certainly one of this genre. It's kind of an adjunct to the book. There's a number of people in the documentary that are mentioned in the book, and it gets into an overview of the whole topic because, again, I had no knowledge of any of this, and I imagine many other people don't as well. So it's a starting point, and there's many more books and information out there if people are curious. But I've kind of done the homework not only for myself, but ultimately for anyone that wants to take a look at it.
Now, looking at these, would you describe what you saw as like a triangle kind of formation to some extent? I know what I've always heard is it's kind of the flying V, or
right.
Someone earlier on the air today said something like geese flying, kind of in a formation.
Right.
And now I remember reading a lot of accounts of people seeing triangle, and they're always described as being these huge crafts instead of the smaller, flying saucer kind of thing.
No, these are huge. I mean, we had people that were driving up I-10 from Tucson to Phoenix, and it extended not only over both highways, but on the other side of each highway. And we actually had other witnesses that were out in Carefree, where they were just building homes out there, and they're realtors, and they're very credible people who actually, this thing went right over them, and there were stakes in the ground, and they estimate, and they saw the craft, they estimated to be 2 miles wide. And some people, actually, they were one of them, saw these orbs detach from the main craft and go out in the environment and then redock with it. Like I said, there was a real intelligence. Some people saw this object take off at a tremendous speed. The technology was extremely advanced, needless to say, and this is 12 years ago. And it's not the first time that this has happened. It happened prior to our sighting as well. So it's been around for a while, and to this day, it's unexplained. The only explanation that came forth, and by the way, the military and government denied that anything happened. I mean, needed a lot of clamoring, what happened here, and, let's find an answer, and why isn't there an investigation? It was like, what? Something happened here? It was very bizarre.
So they really gave no example or explanation whatsoever.
Nothing.
They just said it never happened.
That anything happened, and said that all planes were down by 8:30. Okay, so the witnesses were left with, I know what I saw, but everybody's denying it. I mean, it was really a bizarre situation until about 5 months later, June 18th, 1997, a USA Today article came out, front page, announcing our sighting to the world. And we were deluged by media from all over the world. And as soon as they would start talking to the witnesses, and you certainly can see that in my documentary, their descriptions were so detailed and so heartfelt. They, too, were saying, why isn't there an investigation? Why isn't there an explanation? Within days, the former governor, Bryce Symington, announced that they knew who the culprit was. This was the announcement of the sighting in March, and the media took it really seriously, and he called a press conference while he comes marching out, one of his aides in an alien costume with a big alien head, and really offended a lot of people, especially parents that were with their children, who, I have to say that's another important point of all this. Initially, and we've been so ingrained by the media and certainly Hollywood for so many years of threat and harm and destruction, and 6 months before the mass sighting, Independence Day had come out. So some of the children were jumping up and down, Independence Day, Independence Day. But interestingly, and this is a very important point that I get into in the book, there's so much more to the story. As this object was coming closer, a calmness came over everyone, including the children, the adults, and as it passed by, the children actually wanted to chase after it. I mean, in real time, there was a total change in their feeling and their connectedness to the phenomena. And to this day, I mean, it has touched people at such a deep, deep level that I get emails all the time. There's not a day that goes by that I don't have an email from someone who just wants to share, and that was another important point as a physician to come forward. There's a lot of healing to be done. A lot of people have had experiences that are real to them, and most things can be explained. But when it affects you at a deep level, and you don't have answers for it, and you're afraid to talk about it, that festers. And it's really important to be able to share. So I hope, if nothing else, my coming forward has helped people to do that. And ultimately, interestingly, last year, the former governor came forward to say publicly that he actually saw.
And was still making a joke out of it.
No, I mean, he's serious now.
Oh.
For whatever reason, he came forward to
Sometimes
say that he actually saw it, and we do have a piece of that in the documentary as well, which is very interesting because it seems that in the last 12 years, there is definitely a change in the mentality and in the perception and also in the media, especially here, of more of an acceptance that, hey, something is really going on here. Let's get down to the bottom of it. And I applaud anybody that does that because it's true. I mean, there is something going on. Let's find out what's going on here. And in fact, J. Allen Hynek, I don't know if you know that name, but he was the head of astronomy at Northwestern University and plucked out of there to be the head of the only public research for UFOs in the 60s, which closed in 1969. And interestingly, he came forward right before his death to say that he was told not to panic the public, anything that could be explained away easily, put out there, anything that he couldn't explain, to tuck it away somewhere else. And, he came forward to say that things were swamp gas and balloons, et cetera, et cetera. Well, interestingly, not only after 69, he formed the Center for UFO Studies in Chicago, which is interesting because if they're not real, what is that doing there? But he coined the phrase close encounters, and he also said, which was very poignant, that science happens in steps. The first step is total disbelief. The second step, people start saying, well, it might be so. And the third and final step is, I knew that all the time. Well, I have to tell you that from the change in the media and the change in attitude and more people seeing and documenting these phenomena, we're getting closer and closer to this last stage. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Oh, wow. Hey, Lynn, it's time for us to take a break here. You can hold on just a moment.
Sure.
We'll be right back with Dr. Lynn Kitai with the Phoenix Lights. If you got a phone call or if you've got a question, please give us a phone call. 304-214-1600. Out of the area, call toll free, 866-514-1600. We'll be right back.
Do you want to dive into the bizarre world of the paranormal? Do ghosts, UFOs, or the supernatural amaze you to the point of wanting to learn more? Then you need BVRN, the Black Vault Radio Network. With more than 750 hours of on-demand talk radio, syndicated from more than 35 shows, the Black Vault Radio Network is your one-stop shop for the world of the unexplained. Check us out and tune in 24 hours a day. www.blackvaultradio.com. Again, that's www.blackvaultradio.com.
Over recent years, the traditional office has become more of a touchpad than a daily destination. Long gone is the reliance on a landline to work away from the office. More people are performing work from home or other locations thanks to technologies like GoToMyPC that let you take your office wherever you go. With GoToMyPC, you have freedom from the office, enhanced work-life balance, and increased work flexibility. When choosing a remote access service, you need to make sure it's easy to set up, easy to use, and affordable. That's why you need GoToMyPC. And you can try it free for 30 days. For this special offer, go to mypc.com/techpodcasts. That's go to mypc.com/techpodcast. Take your office with you wherever you go with GoToMyPC. Welcome back to Whispers, everybody, on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog. It is 8:37 p.m., still 31 degrees outside, still cold, still rainy. We have with us today Dr. Lynn Kitai. The book is called The Phoenix Lights. The documentary is called The Phoenix Lights, and the website is thephoenixlights.net.
So if you don't get that this happened in Phoenix.
That there were lights in Phoenix.
Yeah. Now, haven't there been lights since then?
Yes. Yes, there have.
Didn't a cop record some from one of his on a dash cam or something, or was that a different state?
They're occurring all over the United States. In fact, if you get on our website, they're happening worldwide. But if you get on our website and more sightings on our homepage, you'll see a map. It'll blow you away. I mean, these sightings, again, most things can be explained, but there's so many similar sightings happening that cannot be explained. There's definitely something going on here. And interestingly, I'm glad you brought that up. Last April 21st, and we've had other sightings. In fact, in our documentary, I show some of the other sightings since '97 that are pretty poignant. I mean, the formations are amazing, and I happen to catch them on video. And also on my webpage, the photo page, you can see some of them, including two different sunset pictures where I may have actually caught the side view of the craft. It's a very long cigar-shaped thing that you hear about worldwide in the same location 2 months, one month apart, one in November and one picture in December in the same place, which is, what is that? But at any rate, last April 21st, there was another sighting here. It was a little bit different and in a different area than usually I see them. But the video was very compelling. The witnesses as well said that they saw these lights in a line and then go into a rectangle and then in an arrowhead shape. There was so much hoopla. I could not believe it. I mean, it was like it exploded in a matter of hours. By the next morning, I was getting calls from every radio station, and interestingly, there were calls into one of the radio stations that people had seen these lights the night prior, Sunday night. The sighting took place on a Monday night, which is really interesting because was the military ready for this? Because even though I was doing interviews all day long, and by the afternoon, was in the middle of an interview for Good Morning America and Nightline, and actually flew out that night to a morning show. We have that posted on our website, the morning show with Mike and Juliet, which was a really fun time. But in the meantime, the afternoon, that Tuesday afternoon, the next day, we got a call that someone had come forward who looked very military when you look at him in the interview. To say that his neighbor was sending off balloons with flares tied to string. Now, there are a lot of inconsistencies with this. Not only in his story did he say his neighbor was sending them off every 2 minutes, two at a time, but when they finally caught up with this supposed neighbor, he wasn't at home. The kids who were supposedly with him that night didn't know anything about it. It was days before the reporters could even get him at the door, and he showed them some apparatus, would not reenact it. It was very dry, by the way. It had not rained since the prior beginning of February, so the fire department was up in arms, but never ended up doing anything. And the guy himself said he was sending them off one at a time, 1 minute apart, so that's inconsistent with what the other guy said. Besides that, there's no way, even if he was sending them off 1 minute apart, that they could make a formation. I mean, balloons and you would have seen flaring, and nobody
They'd
saw
blow
that.
around.
Fact,
And it wasn't a sustained formation, which is
right,
what
it was a
was
sustained
described.
formation. You can't do that with balloons and flares
No,
tied
you
to
can't do that
string.
with flares. You can barely do that, honestly, with aircraft, unless you're
Right.
making a lot of noise and it's not.
Right, and the corker, too, was that both the Deer Valley air traffic controllers from the airport there and from Sky Harbor International Airport immediately said they didn't know what it was, could not be identified. Within an hour, they were silent. So there was something going on there, but what was really amazing to me, whoever did this, I have to share, is that our documentary, which was really a work in progress since '05, we've been adding things, and astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell is now in it, as well as a 911 police operator came forward last year to say that she was on that night and she just retired. She's ready to talk, and an airline pilot. We have some incredible people in the documentary. We had just completed it a couple months before. Have a wonderful distributor, Vanguard Cinema, who decided on their own when it should be distributed and let out in the stores, including Blockbuster and Netflix, etc. What was the date it was released? Now, this sighting happened April 21st. The next morning it was released.
Wow.
Which was flying off the shelves. So it was like a pretty neat gift for us. But at any rate, that was the latest sighting here that really got some notoriety.
Now, with you saying there were balloons, I remember, was it the Mexican government that just released some footage they had from
which is very similar
it looks
to what my husband and I saw. Absolutely.
just like your pictures.
Absolutely.
And they tried to say that was balloons and candles as well.
Well, they actually, it was caught by ultra, violet, just infrared cameras, and it was pretty amazing, and really, you can hear in the background, I mean, it really startled the military that was catching pictures of them.
Yeah.
So, again, there was something going on there, and it's, it gets to be a little ridiculous already. It's like enough. Let's get this out in the open, and other countries are doing that. France, Belgium, UK, Mexico, as well as Brazil, just came forward with thousands of UFO files to say, okay, these are real, they're unexplained, let's get them out in the open and have science look at them. And that's what we need to do. We need to just look at this realistically, have science really come to the plate now. And I know that there are many scientists, by the way, behind closed doors that are studying these things and have been for many, many decades. But it's time we get it out in the open already and start addressing them, because people need to know they're not crazy, that when they see something like this, that it is real. And, if you carry around a 35-millimeter camera, that's the best way to capture these things, I have to tell you. That's the best way to analyze. Although, we don't really have the technology yet to definitively define what they are. But, certainly some things can be done with spectral analysis and so forth.
Well, Doctor, we just had a phone call from a very good listener, and he wants to know, why do you think our government leaks every bloody thing that comes along the pike? Why would they keep this under such tight wraps for so long?
Good question.
That is a really good question, and something that many of us would like to know. Because, again, other countries are not. Other countries are coming forward now. Whether it's fear of panic.
Do you think that they think we're too stupid?
Well, you have to admit, when we had the Roswell situation, which, anybody that's heard about the Roswell crash, that was in the 40s and the 50s. There were many, many sightings, and it was also the Cold War. We had just finished World War II, and they didn't want people to panic, which is, I can say realistic. But from then till now, there certainly is something going on. There's some reason why there's been a cap put on it, but it's starting to leak. And you can tell that. We just did a show for Dateline NBC a couple months ago that they had the 10 top UFO sightings ever. Phoenix Lights was number 1, which we were really proud.
Wow.
Tonight, actually, on History Channel, they're addressing they call it the Arizona Lights, because it was the Arizona Lights, although the videos that were captured were in Phoenix. And I think that's how it got its name, and certainly, poignant that the videos that were captured, although there were other people, and people ask that all the time, there were many other people who tried to photograph the gigantic, massive phenomena, but it was so dark and so big that it just blocked out the stars. So none of those pictures turned out.
Wow.
But at any rate, tonight they're going to be addressing the Arizona Lights, so it'll be interesting to see what they come up with on UFO hunters. And it's still alive and well. And again, one of the most historic and important and most well documented sightings in history.
we have a guy that works with us, and he truly does not believe in this. And then another young man just started to work here today, and he was saying that he had been at the the observatory in Los Angeles, and he said when you go through that presentation, and they take you kind of like on a virtual tour of the galaxy and then the universe, and he said it's impossible to believe. After you see that we are it's arrogant to believe that we are the only life forms in this whole massive, not just our galaxy, but everything beyond
it. Exactly. You brought up a really good point, because think about this. Our one galaxy, our Milky Way galaxy, and again, who knows how many trillions there might be out there, is 10 to 14, and they're thinking even older than 14 billion years old. Okay? Our solar system is a very young solar system. It's only 4 to 6 billion years old. So there are scientists now postulating that there could be sentient, intelligent beings out there billions of years ahead of us. That is an awesome thought.
Yes, that's almost something you can't found.
Right, and also, people give the argument, well, we can't travel the speed of light and it would take so long and all that. Well, you know what? What my husband and I saw, and I hope people read it in the book because I really go into detail, seemed to be from another dimension. They seemed to still be there after they disappeared. They went somewhere without budging when those orbs disappeared, very, very slowly. And, one can only imagine, like now quantum physics is catching up. I think we're in our infancy as far as science and knowledge goes.
Yeah.
But quantum physics is now saying that there could be, with a string theory, for example, at least 11 different dimensions. Well, it's not that far of a jump to think if there are other dimensions, if there's other times and spaces along with ours, what would be so strange about having other intelligent beings in those other dimensions?
Absolutely.
And we get glimpses of them if we're invited or we're open to it. And that's another thing in the book where I really get into a lot more than just the Phoenix Lights. The Phoenix Lights is about a third of the first third of the book. And then I found a very interesting connection as I was interviewing witnesses. And this is really was amazing to me because a number of witnesses had said that they had had near-death experiences as children that was reawakened by the mass sightings. And I found that really, really poignant because I did too. And I go into my near-death experience in the book in detail as well. And I thought, geez, could there possibly be a connection between all unexplained phenomena, be it near-death experience, out-of-body experience, unexplained aerial phenomena, that have a mystical light associated with the experience? And lo and behold, when I started looking, I started finding major studies at university, the Omega Project, Dr. Kenneth Ring at the University of Connecticut and others, that were truly finding a connection between all unexplained phenomena, not only in the experience itself, and I lay it out very easily in the book, but what was most dramatic was the positive after effect, an enlightening, an awakening that happens to an individual that truly experiences what I started calling an up, unexplained phenomena, a UP, an up, because it was an up, connectedness to the universe, to the earth, to each other, that is so mind-boggling and mind-altering that your life is changed forever. And you'll find in literature and in studying people that have had unexplained phenomena experience have this positive transformation. In fact, there is one witness, Terry Mansfield, who's going to be on the History Channel tonight, who is just a perfect example of this. I mean, she was always dedicated to the community. She was working with other hospice workers on the night when this craft went right above their heads. She was with a dozen hospice workers. She is now the CEO of the Arizona Department of Peace and is really out there promoting peace on Earth and peace in space. It wakes you up to what we're doing to ourselves and our planet. And whoever is doing this, again, is not only trying to wake us up to their presence, but to what we're doing before it's too late. And that's the biggest message of all.
Wow. I got chills.
I do too. I'm like ready to cry. because
right,
I wish I could do this. I wish something like this would happen to me. Just this.
A lot of people do, actually. But if you learn about it, I have to tell you, if you learn about it, if you just read about it and really let it sink in, and being open-minded is the first step. You not only might have experiences, but you're going to start noticing things that you probably never noticed before, synchronicities and other things that will come in front of you if your eyes are open to it, that really make life, even more worth living and wondrous.
Oh, my. It's just an experience I wish I could have.
Lola's been wanting to have a supernatural experience since we started this. Since we started this show. Every week she wants that.
Well, that's okay. You keep open to it, and one of these days it's going to happen to you. Because once you are open, and that's the next step. In fact, I've joined forces not only with Terry Mansfield, but also Dr. Rebecca Hardcastle, who is also in the documentary. She's a PhD minister, and also works really on the next step. She has a book coming out that talks about exoconsciousness and about communicating with these other intelligences. And again, I don't know what they are. They could be spirit world, they could be interdimensional beings, interstellar beings, or maybe they're us from the future. But the fact is that we can communicate in a way that will really widen your horizons, and you'll realize that we're not alone.
Now, Lynn, I sent you a link for you to check out later. There was actually a sighting, and after we started talking about this, it reminded me, sighting north of here, and I've been trying to get some more information on it, of a triangle-like craft with 3 blue lights on the corners, and with a crystalline object rising up to it. And he got some very good pictures of it, and later on, I'll email you back, or if you want to email me and let me know what you think about those pictures.
Absolutely.
Very, very good pictures, and I think something that you'll want to take a look at.
Oh, that's great. And anybody listening out there, if you have pictures or you want to share your story, we are doing a research project, actually. And if you just want to share with me, that's fine. The contact link is on our website, thephoenixlights.net. I'd love to hear from people. It's just great to be able to share with someone that appreciates, what you have to say, and it's okay to say it.
That's funny because Sandy just called me. She's another really great listener and a friend of mine. And she said, "Oh my God, this woman, I get everything she's saying." And she said she had an experience with, for the lack of a better term, a UFO. And she said it followed her, and her 14-year-old son was in the car with her. Wow. And they talked about it, at the time. And yet years later, when she brought it up to him, he didn't remember it.
Right.
And, and now, unfortunately, he's not with us anymore for her to try and get him to remember the story. And then my sister and I did too down in Florida. I know that's what I saw. There's no doubt in my mind. But
well, interestingly, there were a number of people who were supposedly told telepathically while this was happening, don't worry about it, don't be afraid. And as this thing glided by them, they just totally forgot about it until months later when they saw a program on television. It woke them up, and they said, "Wait a minute, we saw it." And these are families, whole families that were together. For some reason, it just was buried in their consciousness until it was reawakened by a TV show. So yeah, there may be many other people out there that have had experiences that don't even remember it or want to remember it. I mean, you have to look at the population. Everybody comes from a different background, from a different upbringing, from a different belief system, and that has to be respected. Some people can't deal with this or don't want to deal with it, and that's okay. And they'll feed into a logical explanation like flares or whatever. That's okay if it gives them comfort. Everyone in their own time. But the information is there if you want to learn and you want to grow. And that's all I say. Just look at it and then get back to me.
Which is probably the explanation for the governor when he brought up the alien. I mean, to some degree, it was probably hard for him to fathom maybe what he had seen, and therefore the most ludicrous is to bring on a fake alien in handcuffs and try to make fun of it. And it's a human reaction, I guess.
Right, and you know what? It's enough, because a lot of people have been hurt by that.
Yeah.
And the ridicule and the snickering and all that, it's enough. You know, let's just get it out on the table. And I have to say again that's Phoenix is really a model for that now, because luckily enough, I had in the early 80s, and actually I started in the 70s with NBC in Philadelphia. I had done health reporting here in the early 80s for NBC here and then USA Cable. And when I stayed anonymous, Jim Delatoso and Michael Tanner, who were the main investigators, called me Dr. X. They were the only ones that knew who I was and all the data that I had. And I didn't know if I was going to come forward or not. But then ultimately when I did, the people that I had worked with in the early 80s at NBC were now at all the different stations. And they were big wheels. They were now the news directors, the top producers. And they really welcomed me and my work with open arms, which was so, I can't even tell you, a blessing. And since then, they have been very open.
That's great.
To people sharing, to going out. I mean, they were right on top of this thing April 21st. I mean, there were cameras, there were helicopters out there. I mean, it was amazing how they just got right on top of it, which was amazing and wonderful. And I'd like to see that happen, you know, everywhere. Just to be open to this. And that's the other thing I have to share, and this is really important.
Okay, we're about to run out, so if we can...
Well, this is a really good message, because in almost 12 years, there has not been not one report of harm, threat, or abduction associated with the Phoenix Lights.
Wow.
And that's very telling.
Wow.
And the data speaks for itself.
That's awesome. Well, Lynn, thank you very much for your call today. Thank you for joining us. We really want to have you back. I think Nick was talking to us earlier about March.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you guys have spoken about that.
We're celebrating the 12th anniversary, and we have some new things coming forward then as well. So
we're really looking forward to that. We're really excited. We're very glad that you joined us today.
I really appreciate it, and you know, like I said, just get on the website, enjoy the website, and if you get entranced to read the book and check out the documentary. I think it might open, you know, some doors that you've never even thought about before.
Great.
And they're good doors.
Yes,
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
All right, see you, Len.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, and also, anybody out there, UFO Hunters Tonight, Arizona Lights, Wednesday, December 10th, 10 o'clock, tomorrow at 2 a.m., and, well, I guess later tonight at 2 a.m., and then Saturday at 4 p.m., so it's
Set
3
your
different
DVRs.
chances. I have those listed on our website. With the links.
The book, The Phoenix Lights.
She was great.
The documentary, The Phoenix Lights, and the website, thephoenixlights.net.
The Phoenix
Check it out.
The
Nothing
documentary
like,
is
you know,
Phoenix
keeping
Lights.
it very simple.
Yeah,
Here's what I want to say real quick. The government, my take on the whole, why they don't come out and say it, because they spent so long discrediting and trying to humiliate everybody that has said and claimed they had seen something.
Yeah.
That now, when it's all coming out, they don't want to
Admit it.
They don't want to admit that they were messing with people.
Yeah.
That's my personal take on it.
you probably could be right.
Yeah.
Nikki, who we got next week?
Next week we have, and I'm going to do my best on this name. I've got to talk to him again. Stefan Watuni. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. He'll probably yell at me. He's going to be talking to us about the Great Pyramid, what it has to do with UFOs, some different takes on theories behind it. Week after that, Alex Monty Kanawati, movie director, Return to Babylon in L.A. He contacted us to talk about some weird things happening on a movie shooting. He's been shooting Return to Babylon.
Sylvia Brown said he was in a paranormal vortex. He was trapped.
Wasn't he the...
Alrighty then.
But I won't go in there.
And then after that, Dear Zachary, director, creator, Kurt Kane or Kuhn. I'm not sure exactly how to say his last name. I got to hear these things. I'm very bad at last names and stuff. I hate butchering them, but I do.
All right, everybody. Next week, Stefan Watuni. He believes the pyramids were made out of people in some sort.
He believes
the pyramids are us. Very stoic.
No. Yeah, he believes that the
stoic.
pyramid is us in stone form, made out of people.
Us in stone form.
See, that's what you told me at the beginning. It's made out of people.
You've been watching Soylent Green. It's Soylent Green is people.
Okay.
The Great Pyramid is people.
Stop poking fun at Jordan.
Drink your milk and be quiet.
I will. All right, everybody. That's it for us this week. Tune in next week. And until then, don't be afraid, only believe.